Welcome to Acharya Shunya's Global Satsang. Acharya Shunya is a modern teacher of non-dual Advaita Vedanta philosophy from the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, the lived practices of Vedic yoga, and the transformative knowledge of Ayurveda lifestyle wisdom. Her teaching changes lives, enabling happiness, well-being, and spiritual abundance. For seekers of the ultimate truth, these teachings awaken consciousness and assist realization of the sovereign self. Acharya Shunya is a Vedic wisdom holder of an ancient lineage. She received traditional training under her guru, Baba Ayodhya Nath, in Ayodhya, India. Baba tasked Acharya Shunya to bring these teachings to the modern world. As a teacher who has walked this Vedic path from darkness to light, from emotional bondage to spiritual freedom, Acharya Shunya is uniquely able to dynamically communicate these ancient subtle teachings to modern students. We welcome you to begin your journey of Vedic studentship with these monthly classes. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and Vedic Contemplations Facebook group for ongoing study with Acharya Shunya.
Om Tat Sat. Welcome to everybody, all of you who are joining me from different parts of this planet, and all of the students and seekers who have assembled here in front of me. I welcome you all. It's such a joy to sit down once a month, take out 2 hours and decide that we are going to have a deep conversation on matters that are spiritual. And we need to have that space to have that discussion because we are spirit after all. And we often have mundane discussions, worldly discussions, and there is a place for it. We need those discussions too. It's not a conflict. We can't be exclusively having spiritual discussions, but from time to time we need to come back and have an insight into what's going on in the worldly realm. And we as spirits have incarnated and taken on material bodies, material names, material roles, but it's good to come back and take like a little detached view. Then the gestalt changes and we have a greater insight into what's going on here, right? So that really is what is meant by Satsang. Sat here means the company of a greater truth. Sangha means to bring, Sangha means to come into union with it, to come closer to it. Sat means it's not the truth of Hindus or Muslims or people who live in one part of the world and not the other. It's the ultimate truth, the truth of our spiritual being. So welcome to the Global Satsang, and let me tell you that I'm about to embark on a conversation, but my mind doesn't know what it wants to talk about today. So best of luck enjoying yourselves. So one of the ways that we can be in truth with a greater truth is to accept that we don't know it all. How's that, right? There was a part of me that could have totally like sat down and tapped into something that I wanted to teach, but I could also see this fun part of me that said, no, I don't want to know what to do. I don't want to follow a certain sequential path of teaching because I trust. And trusting is another part of the spiritual being, where I can trust that I'm talking to no different people than me. I'm talking to the spirit that is common in me and common in you, and you will understand. And we don't always have to have a whiteboard with an amazing presentation and something to talk about. Maybe we can be in that silence, right? And isn't our life special when we can reach that place and just be in trust? How about that? And I'm opening that by sharing with you that I'm in total trust that whatever flows out of my being today, because my intention is right. My intention is not to wow you. My intention is not to sell something to you. My intention is not to impress you. My intention is for us to just come into a simplicity of our being. Let's take a breath here, shall we? Like so together all the time. Let's get untogethered inside ourselves, if that's even a word. when I was sitting quietly before, I started talking, I could see myself from a distant place. So what if I made a proposition? I'm just proposing something. You don't have to take it to the bank. Just be open. Vedic spirituality doesn't ask you to have faith. That's like not a word that we expect until a long time later. All we ask you is to be open. Okay. We don't want blind faith, right? Why would we want your blind faith? It pulls everybody down. What if you were actually somewhere else right now? You're somewhere else, and only a reflection of you is acting, moving, thinking, copulating, going to work, driving a car, attending a satsang. What if this being is only a reflection of you, and there is another part of you that is somewhere else? Now don't ask me that somewhere else, because time and space is anyway, it's a mind thing and it changes based on the mind. But can you just imagine that you may be a reflection, and that maybe the real you is only an observer? And so maybe if there's a real me that is observing me, talk to you, then I am almost like a prototype. Does that make sense? Is that a good word? I'm a prototype of the original consciousness, of the original observer consciousness. And the observer consciousness in Sanskrit is known as Sakshi. Very good. It is known as Sakshi Chaitanyam. Chaitanya means consciousness. So you can also call it Sakshi. So your true nature is what? You are a consciousness, and by nature consciousness is intelligent. So it observes. It doesn't need eyes to observe. It is all-knowing. Okay. If that is the case, then whatever is happening with this prototype, this being, does it feel like it's going through a journey? Does it feel like that? Yeah? I remember when my grandfather, my guru, had aged and his body had become smaller because he lived till age 90. And he mentioned to me once, he said, I am the same, the body has aged. And then he made a poetry out of it. I said, I am still that 4-year-old that wanted to eat laddus that his aunt had made. I'm still the 12-year-old who had climbed the tree to rescue a kitten, but I am the same, his hands had become wrinkled, but and then he went on to say, I am the same, who decided it will come journey through this body. I am the same when I shall be standing outside the body. So this consciousness, who we are, is present before we enter the body, through the body, and after the body. It is that beautiful consciousness that we are. So when we are in the body, when this consciousness, we agree to, a part of us agrees to journey, then it becomes what is known as a Jivana Yatra. Yatra means journey, huge big excursion, and Jivana means life. A journey through life. We are life principle, but we embody it and we go through this Jivana Yatra. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because now I remember why Baba would sing and chant like that, and or laugh like that. He told me, because some of you, he's our great guru, so I'll share a story. He said that his aunt had made laddus, and they were kept on a plate near a mirror, and there was a comb next to it. Like there was a comb or whatever, oil and comb, and there were some laddus kept nearby. He was given a laddu, but then he kept walking to the mirror, combing his hair and eating a laddu, combing his hair, eating a laddu. And so he ate a couple of laddus, combed his hair really nicely, and then he was hanging out, and one of his cousins said, your hair looks nice and combed. And he felt so guilty, like somebody had discovered all his laddus. So that's what we all do. We come and eat our sneaky laddus, don't we? This is all part of Jivan Yatra. Baba shared this at a satsang. The child, when we are children, we are playful. We are not stealing anything. We are beyond stealing and not stealing. We are beyond morals. We are just delightful, innocent beings, aren't we? We come in like that. Then we go through some youth and our mind starts awakening and a lot of buried remembrances of a previous journey start coming up, and we feel, I want this, I want that, and we feel invincible at that point. Then we are into adulthood and we feel a little jaded and we wonder, there's a part of us that wonders, I had taken on this journey, am I going in the right direction? And then finally by old age, if we are smart, if we have a spiritual teacher, or we've had some discussions, we are comfortable. The journey is exactly as it meant to be. There were no wrong turns. Every wrong turn was a right turn. It took us to the right place. And we are ready to be, you remember then, I am the same, I'm the same. Though my body has aged, I'm still that being who had entered, right? This journey. So this Jivan Yatra, I'm feeling inspired to share with you, has 4 seasons. And right now spring is here. Have you noticed that? It's a little early, but it's undeniable. Yeah? So we go through seasons in the external world. The Vedas remind us that they help us they give us the imagery of seasons so that we can be a little more attuned in our Jivana Yatra or in our life with those ritus or seasons of our life. Okay? So shall I share them with you? Some of you may be already aware of it. For some of you it may be new. And for many of you who are joining me in the online global opportunity, for some of you again, you may know it. But I'll bring in something that we can contemplate upon together. So these 4 seasons are known as ashrama. Ashrama. Nowadays the word is very popular. No? I am going to an ashrama, right? We go and live in an ashram. It makes sense because ashrama is a place where we rest the shrama, the effort. What is the effort? The effort of not being in alignment with who we are. We are resting. So a spiritual teacher can have an ashram where you can go, you can rest, and you can not rest as in the teacher might tell you to sweep the whole ashram. If they are a Vedic teacher or Buddhist teacher, they will give you karma yoga, seva. But the point is that you will rest in who you are. Have some of you felt that when you come here for satsang? It's like, okay, I can drop all the labels and my teacher sees me as a soul. I know I'm a soul and I'm good to go. Yeah? So there are so it makes sense that a teacher's abode, a guru's abode in the traditional sense was called ashram. Okay. But there are actually ashramas in life that we are asked to think about and bring into alignment. So what are those? Let me go over them. The first one is known as Brahmacharya Ashrama. So the second one is known as Grihastha Ashrama. Third one is known as Vanaprastha Ashrama. Fourth one is known as Sannyasa Ashrama. What are these? Brahmacharya Ashrama means you are young and you are learning. Grihastha means you have learnt a few things. Now you are put in the world to get married or take on a partner or start a business or go to work. Engage in the world with your learning. Vanaprastha Ashrama means you've engaged enough, you are tired, now disengage. And sannyasa means you really just let go of whatever is around you, it's time to go back in. So it was a journey. Brahmacharya means you came in and you learned of what it means to be a human being. You learned about dharma, you learn about you should be polite, you should have manners, you should know what 2 plus 2 is 4 according to human mathematics, right? And so we have all our rules, right? Depending on wherever we are. In a way, we can say everybody goes through a brahmacharya ashrama, even in modern times when they go through schooling, etc., and they are taught moral science and physics and culture and, all those things we are taught. So then we have grahastha ashrama, where we are like, okay, you've graduated. You've become a person of the world, and now you're 18, now you can choose your president, you can choose, you can vote, you can start an enterprise. I was listening on public radio that there is some 19-year-old who's standing for elections, and when I heard him, he looked like he was 2,000 years old, like a young soul in a 19-year-old body. I'm like, wow, So you can do that. And we engage in the world. And then whether you know Sanskrit or not, there is a time when you say, I'm done. Maybe I want to take retirement, maybe I want to go on a retreat, maybe I want to go on a vacation by myself, maybe I want to move to a community with like-minded people where I can have a little more different conversations. Does that happen? Many times people look for a spiritual teacher or actually read a book like The Power of Now. Instead of having it on their desk, they actually read it. This happens in the third stage. Vanaprastha means, vana means forest, and prastha means you start moving towards the forest. So it's symbolic. You're no longer in the city lights. You're moving away. You're in the world, but you're kind of more introverted. Or you become more choosy. You're definitely more selective. Yeah? Definitely a nice phase, because from a journey perspective, it's like, because just prior, when you were in the world, you'd almost forgotten that you're only visiting. You don't live here permanently. But now in Vanaprastha, you're like, okay, maybe there are some other destinations I have to visit. So I'm not going to take it so seriously. If I don't meet this one specific goal, it's okay. If this one specific person doesn't give me their vote of approval, it's okay. So, we start doing that. And finally, some of us who are, we are guided in the Vedic field. If we are guided, then we are told that why don't you start meditating and, really going deeper, because in sannyasa ashrama, you are more and more established in your true nature, the one that is a sakshi, the one that is an observer. It may still be an actor in the world, but it is more from an observer perspective. Does that make sense? Do you like this scheme of a journey? Yeah, like you get in the train. When you get in, that's brahmacharya, or you're a student. Then you think you live in the train forever. You're like, okay, this is it. I've made it. I'm in my ultimate destination. And you forget that the train's moving. You forget. You're like totally involved in who lives in the train, all those juice packs that you get in the train. You're like, well, I love this food, and you're totally involved. And people are playing card games. You're playing card games. So you're totally involved and you have no other idea. But when you come into Vanaprastha, you're like, oops, the train's moving. And people are getting in and getting out. Oh, I might also get out one day, because I'd come in. Oh no, suddenly your lights go on. It's like, oh man, I made an entry. Everything that enters exits. This is that loka, or that's that train. Then you kind of go find a quiet, empty, compartment of the train, and you kind of say, wait, come play cards. Maybe not now. Come, let's play, what are some of those games that people play in trains? Card games, and do they play, what's that?
Board games.
Board games. What's that game? You call a number and you stick a bingo. You said no to bingo. No bingo. Or at least temporarily no bingo. Because now you want to find the bingo inside you. You're like, bingo, this is not going to last forever. So you've had that bingo moment. So you've entered the third stage. And now people talk about you a little bit, like, they look at you suspiciously because, you sit quiet. You don't gossip that much. You say no to the plastic tray food that comes in the train. Now you're trying to get off at every station and find some herbs and grasses and go natural. And naturally you're weird. But the thing is, you've had your inner bingo moments. You're not playing the board games anymore. And finally, at the stage of sannyasa, you realize it doesn't matter if you're in a moving train. It doesn't matter if people are coming and going, because there's only a part of you that's here. And it's great if you can return back to your wholeness. And death is then not scary. It's not an exit. It's a gateway. Back to saying, oh, I completed one more journey. And I have a choice. Do I start another one? Do I stay in another loka, known as, we have different lokas, different realms of existence. According to the Veda, you have choice. You're not being punished around. And you chose this journey. And how you interact with the people you meet in the train, which includes like cats and animals who jumped into the train, because this train seems to be the kind that's very open to various species. You can come in any form you like. You can take a train ride as an amoeba. You can take a train ride as a human being. Top of the eco chain or bottom of the eco chain, doesn't matter, because it's all equal. The Vedas have given us that ekam sat vipraha baudha vadanti. There is only one truth. It just, scholars may describe it by different names, but there is only one truth that is expressed in all beings, all creatures. So then, probably these ashramas are so beautiful. And at one time, and I'm so surprised that I found that later on, it became all about from age 0 to 25, you're in brahmacharya, then 25 to 50, you are in the, grahastha and grahastha ashram is all about marriage. And it became all very fixed, but it's not like that. Brahmacharya ashram is the ashram where you are learning. And many of you are learning right now, right? Right now, it's not like moms and dads or business people are sitting here. Right now, only seekers are sitting here. Am I correct? And across this camera. Which means that you are right now in your brahmacharya ashram. And the beauty of the brahmacharya ashram is that you get to recreate how you want to be in this journey. It's not like you have this one suitcase and you have to wear those clothes for the entire journey. In brahmacharya ashram, you get to change everything and how you want to participate in this jivana yatra, this journey. So in brahmacharya ashram, you learn new attitudes, new ways to love yourself and this whole experience. Come to peace with all the changeability and transience being on a train. You come to be more in alignment with an agreement that you had made, though you have forgotten. It is this forgetting that is an essential problem. There is no other problem. According to the Veda, nobody is evil, nobody is stupid, nobody is a sinner, only we have forgotten. When we come in, we remember, right? Most children remember they are part of the whole fabric of existence. Most children do. But then as the forgetting happens, when we start believing the train is our only existence, it's at that time that we forget. And then we start telling the other person, please don't sit on my berth, I reserved it. It's mine, right? Don't we do that? Mine, mamakara. And I have first class reservation. Ahamkara. All this stuff come up. And that is when we behave in manner that we may not want to behave like. But here is the good news. Even though you have behaved in a manner that you're not pleased about. You may have behaved in a manner that you're not pleased about. That's actually good, because there is a part of you that has very high standards. It knows that everybody belongs to it and it belongs to everybody. So it's just you versus you. And you can bring forgiveness to yourself, because then you realize that this is like a soul school. This Jivan Yatra is like a soul school. And nobody is good or bad when you have behaved in a manner that you didn't want to behave like. Okay, does that make sense? You need not feel guilty for the rest of your life. Instead, you can say, lesson learned forever. And any future journeys in the train I take. That's it. This is between you and you. That's it. You don't have to like forever hang yourself and beat yourself against, the train door, or do all those, or try to tell everybody you're jumping off the train. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to take that inner seeing, because you're an observer. I see. That was not the way I want to do this train. This is how I want to do the train. You want to do the train, right? Yeah. So this is how I learned, because I didn't always behave in a manner suitable of an Acharya. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It has been a learning. To be an Acharya is definitely a responsibility. And I didn't declare myself as an Acharya until I felt comfortable to do that. But we're all learning, and this is so important, rather than, because we're all on the train. Your so-called Sadguru, Guru, Acharya, gosh, everybody's in the train. They didn't do better. They're all in the train. That means we're all in it together. And who is the Guru and Acharya in our Vedic tradition is somebody who figured out the gestalt. They're no longer forgetting what's the purpose, and now they're helping others also. Does that make sense? There is some people sitting in the train, and when you go hang by them, they kind of remind you that this train is an opportunity. That's all. So we give them respect. Ultimately, a teacher wants you to thrive, and for you to thrive in a respectful way. That's all. That is the role of our teachers. That is why Veda is a teacher-student tradition. Why? Because it was understood there may be books, but a book doesn't talk to you. A book doesn't persuade you. A book won't play with you. A book won't tease you. A book won't even correct you. A teacher's job is to say, which way are you going? Because if the train's exit is in one way, you don't want to go towards the pantry, right? You want to know where you're going. And that is the role of a teacher. And then the student learns it, student learns, and then the student may down the road help someone else. But this is our beautiful tradition. So it was understood that only a soul can wake up another soul. And so souls are in different alignments of awakened, almost awakened, semi-awakened, and downright unawakened consciousness. That doesn't mean that the unawakened consciousness cannot be the awakened consciousness. The sinner of today, according to the Veda, can become the saint tomorrow. And the saint today, can become a sinner. Why? Because we have to remain steadfast to the remembrance of who we are. And by the knowledge of ashramas and this example that I have given you, I hope it helps you consider your journey and its ups and downs and its difficulties with a slight more detachment, a little more neutral way of looking at your life, and also making sure you milk this experience and really gathering up the learning. And there's a beautiful verse in the Vedas of what a rishi is saying at the moment of death. And he says, May I remember who I am. May I remember everything I learned on earth. So it's not like this fogginess and this desire to meet some white light or blue light, which is all our own, which is fine. But the blue light, okay. Now what if you remembered? What if you walked into your death awakened? What if you went through that door not in coma, but in, wow, so this is where we're going to adventure now? See? That's why you want to follow my Ayurveda teachings also, so that you don't have to be on a, like a, what is that called? That machine? What is that machine called? Life support. You don't want to be in life support. You want to be cognizant. You want to be like my Baba who went smiling. With a big smile, like a grin, like he got his laddu, And that smile won't go even on his body. And the eyes are open. What's going on here, Baba? Baba walked into the light because he had found the light here, right? I don't know how I'll go, gosh, all this talk and teaching, and I could just go like that. No, who knows, right? But the point is, we want to do our best. And that's why we have this beautiful asana called the Shavasana in our yogic system. And Shava means the corpse, and asana means the pose. So, a couple of times a week, you should lie down like a corpse. And remember that this body is nothing. You entered it. It's a train. You entered it. Therefore, it has life. And just Shavasana is a very spiritual asana, because then it will help you have a greater relationship with death. And the more comfortable we become with death, the more we become fiercely happy while in this body, in life. Welcome back. We are talking about Jivana Yatra, the journey of life, and that we are souls. We have agreed to take on human bodies, and we go through different stages of life or seasons of life where we want to be learning or seeking the knowledge, we want to be engaged, employing the knowledge, then we want to slightly disengage so that we don't just forget completely that we have other goals such as realization of our own spiritual nature. And finally, we may have an opportunity to recognize and realize our own soul, especially if we have the good fortune of being in touch with great teachers or other souls who have done that, and they can help us. Now, in this journey, we can get either helped or distracted by our mind. That is why India has given to the world the great teachings of yoga. Yoga means, literally, it comes from the word yuj, which means union, and it means union with what? Union moment to moment with the higher truth of self or soul. And there are various pathways of yoga, such as karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and these pathways, when we call them yoga, they are really like tools. They are like sadhanas to reach the state of ultimate yoga, which is the fruit then, the goal. When I bring up yoga at this point, I'm remembering the teachings of Ashtanga Yoga by Sage Patanjali. And Sage Patanjali has taught an eight-step pathway. I'm not going to go through each of that pathway because I have, I believe, classes and offerings that you can find on my website where I go through his teachings of the Sutras, so that you can sit down and do in a very deep manner at some other time. The reason I bring up Patanjali ji, the Rishi, is because he has taught this 8 parts of a yoga, and the end of it is known as Samadhi. And I want to explain this in a different perspective. Okay, so bear with me. And I won't teach all 8, I'm going to teach the later 6 parts. Because the first 2, Yama and Niyama, has to do with ethical do's and don'ts that we abide. And I believe I've talked about Dharma, and I'll keep on talking in some other context. I want to talk about the next ones. So this mind, it's our useful instrument when we are on the journey of life as humans, on the Jivan Yatra. And usually you can see that for most of us who have functioning minds, and we don't have not functioning minds, so we have to be strapped to a chair or institutionalized or put away from society, but we have working minds, then we tend to use it, right? To have relationships, to hold jobs, to pay our bills, to look for another job if we don't have it, to raise our children. So generally we do. But despite everything, doesn't the mind give us a lot of anxiety? Would you agree? And guilt and darkness and sorrow, and often it even misleads us, right? It makes us write that email when we shouldn't be writing it. It makes us bring up a point in a conversation when it may have been better not to bring it up right now, right? So it's almost like the mind is kind of doing its thing at times, right? And those are critical times, and life, the train, just kind of, it's going on a certain course, and our life journey gets very disrupted at that time. The issue with the mind is, because the Vedic seers looked back and diagnosed the issue, they said, look, you guys got a great instrument, okay? It's like, do you remember back in when the television was brand new, at least in India, it worked like that, and some of you may agree, sometimes it won't catch the reception, so the best way was to bang it. Did you guys do it in America too? Did you do it? We just bang it and it would reboot, right? Do you guys remember? So, okay, so you can stop the satsang and just bang your mind. That's one option. Okay. The other option is to stay on in the satsang and learn the next few tips. Okay. So, the mind is like a receptor. It's a receptor of God's mind. And God I define as a great omniscient dimension. God is not an anthropomorphological God. It's not a person, a personality. And the gods of Hinduism, like Ganesha, Shiva, they came much later. The concept of God in the Vedas is nature incarnate, wind, air, fire, and a concept of an omnipotent, all-pervading intelligence, which is God. Okay. Ishvara is the name of God in the Vedas, and Isham, that root Ish, is coming from that omnipotent presence in everything. It is Antaryami. It dwells in each blade of grass. It dwells everywhere, right? There is a housekeeping, intelligent principle that's in each and every particle of this universe. Would you agree? That is Isham. And from that we have Ishvara. Okay? So that is the concept of God, and God's mind is all-knowing. You will agree, right? It keeps calculation of everything. There is nothing wrong with the universe. There's only everything wrong with our mind, because our transmission unit is not always pure enough or healthy enough. So it's us, not the wholeness. It's our own mind. And this is why the Vedas gave us all these different yogas to purify the mind. And today I want to jump into the teachings of Patanjali, because he explained how there's an issue with our minds. The thing is, if you don't tell it what to think, it will think many things on its own. So it will just, it's like do you have that vacuum cleaner that goes around your house? And what if you left it on? Then it's cleaning things you don't want it to clean. Okay, it's like getting into the middle of, you're making love to your wife, it's there. You're having this very secret conversation with your colleague, it's there. You don't want your mind to be everywhere and thinking what it wants to, and it constantly thinks thoughts. And it tends to think all kinds of scenarios which are not even true. Okay, and so it's a great big revelation that they gave us, the seers of Vedas, when they said, don't believe your mind. Tell it what you want it to believe. Like there is you remember, you are the observer, you are part of a greater fabric, and you can tell the mind what to do. And so beautifully, Patanjali has laid out how we always say, what is asana? Asana is nothing, yoga is, we look at the posture. To be in any posture, okay, even to do this, and I'm not standing up right now to do postures, but to do any posture, we're actually telling the mind, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to tell the body to do. So holding that posture, whether it is, you are sitting in a mudra, whether you are, in a posture like a dog pose or I don't know all the Sanskrit, I know only the Sanskrit names, but if you are, whatever, Matsya Asana, Mandukasana, Vrikshasana, whichever asana you are in, I think it's called tree pose, fish pose. So it's actually disciplining the mind. So bravo to the Vedic culture, and of which its biggest fruit is yoga, that it gave birth to this concept. Otherwise, look how the mind is. Constantly moving our hands, constantly fiddling with our skin, itching ours. This is just the mind. But if you've seen, the rishis are always sitting in a certain stillness. There is a certain intentionality. So asana itself, and the way I teach asana is, you don't need 70 asanas. Even if you take 1 or 2 and abide with it. Sthira Sukha Asanam. This is how asana is defined. You become sthira, you become stable. And because you are stable, the mind becomes stable, therefore you experience sukha or happiness. And have you noticed that in life, whenever you take an asanam or a position of stability, come what may, this is my stable going to be, do you feel happy or not? Whether the world agrees with you or not, you feel an inner happiness, yes or no? That is how Gandhi must have felt. That is how Nelson Mandela must have felt. That is how any leader has felt for good social change, whether the people were with them or not. They took an asanam inside them emotionally. So therefore, physical asanam is really a discipline of the mind. And what if some of us in the train, in the yoga, were in a position of asana? So if some yogi is sitting in an asana position, we should think, wow, they are disciplining their mind, not just their body. Yes? Now let's take it further. So after asana comes pranayama in this 8-pronged chain. And breath, we think we are very conscious of our breath, but we are not. And when the mind is scared, it just stops breathing. It wants to die. It wants to disappear. So you're shallow breathing. Yeah? But what if you tell your mind, I want to breathe deep. Do it now. I want to exhale and I want my tummy to go in and out like it used to when I was a baby. I used to breathe so deeply. Have you seen little babies? Their breath, you have babies, you've seen them, right? Their tummy goes up, tummy goes down. Because they are breathing deep. Their mind is completely interested in breathing. And the baby is not worried about anything yet because the mind is very undeveloped. So they are breathing. But what if you consciously start breathing in between chewing, talking, and in a daily life you breathe more? You are telling the mind what to do. So if you find people who are breathing deeply in the train of life, bow to them. Because then they are teaching you how to breathe. Because we've stopped breathing in the journey of life. And then there was this great discovery that, oh, if you breathe, you will have less labor pain. I'm telling you, if you breathe, you will have less life pain. So, please, those of you who've learned pranayama from me, pull out your notes, start again. If nothing else, sit down in a chair and just take a long breath in and imagine that breath is coming from your teacher Shunya that far away, and breathe out even all the way to Himalayas. It has been found by the rishis that when you concentrate on exhalation, you don't have to worry about inhalation. You just exhale, because the mind tends to want to hoard. So you exhale. Inhalation will happen deep anyway. And this is the number one way that you can already start going from being lost in the train to becoming found in the train. Got it? So then you have the concept of pratyahara. So anything, so ahara, you know what it means? Speak up. What is ahara? Does anybody know? Food, that's right. So pratyahara means not eating. Ahara is not just food by the tongue, but anything your senses take in is ahara. What you're eating through your eyes, what you're eating through your nose, this is all ahara. And this part of us is consuming it, the reflection. The observer doesn't need all that. But what if you, the soul, which is an observer, says, I don't want to consume because I'm complete in myself. So pratyahara is a state, now an advanced state, where your mind can be amongst a buffet of food and feel content. It has eaten what it needed to eat and I'm done. Does that make sense? Pratyahara is now a way of life. Pratyahara is not just an asana of covering your ears and eyes, but it is an asana, but it is also an approach where you are not letting your mind eat the whole kitchen just because it can, or it's not allowing it to non-stop be dependent on a sexual relationship because your touch craves that relationship. You can withdraw. You have the power, right? Does that make sense? So pratyahara means you're telling the mind no and you're pulling in. That's pratyahara. Asana, pranayam, pratyahara. It is only after pratyahara is done that the world can no longer pull you. So you're not just like, constantly being attracted by the scenery while you're journeying through life. Okay? Yes, you are using your senses, but to your advantage. Now you can actually fast in between meals and not constantly graze and snack. You can actually live in long periods of silence without needing somebody to talk to you all the time. Because only then can you really go into the third stage of vanaprastha, does it not? Then you go into dharana. Dharana is now you can tell the mind to be focused on what you want it to be focused on for some extended period of time. Otherwise, half the reasons we don't succeed is because our mind stays distracted. Would you agree? Anybody who has tried to, sometimes we have to do what we have to do at work because they're paying us. Okay. Or we're going to get, something from the boss and we're trying to avoid things. But if we have an extended day, like a weekend, and we have 10 things to do in the weekend, repair the fence, mow the grass, we'll do the minimum. And we'll make a reschedule in our minds. I'll paint the fence next Wednesday, and I think I still have some millet, so I think I can manage without groceries. Why? Because we we're procrastinating away because we can't stay focused, and because of that we fail in life in many areas. Would you agree? But now at the first stage, dharana means staying focused, even, and Patanjali doesn't even want hours, it just wants few seconds. But what a feat to be actually focused on something, even when I'm talking, staying focused on what you're receiving here. Otherwise the mind goes here, there, it looks at the cup, it looks at the light, it's always jumping around like a monkey. But if you stay focused, so say you're sitting in front of God, and I do, and you're sitting, and so my mind can go here and there, but I can just, there's a higher power, and I'm not an orphan. Wow. If I can be with it for some time, that is known as dharana. When I can extend that being with the object of my concentration, using the mind without letting it to run away, that is known as dhyana or meditation. And when I can go even beyond that and really keep the mind focused, I go into a state of samadhi. And at that samadhi, we can use the technical terms from the sutras, and it gets, then we need to do like a whole big class, and I need to write it down. But really, in a simple sense, you could use your mind, and say you had an herb in front of you and you really, really focused on it. In a state of samadhi, you would know everything about that herb or that person or the whole universe. That is how our rishis knew what they knew in the science of Ayurveda, Yoga, Vedanta. They used their mind like a microscope that went in, and they entered that object. There was a state of Ritambar Pragya, which means the whole thing lit up. You know everything because you've used the mind. Does that make, I know it sounds hokey pokey, but you can tell, even with your own spouse or your relation or your sister, brother, when you're just seeing them and you're just reacting to them, you don't understand them. But when you start focusing on them, you keep your attention on them, and you're very pure and you're like really going in, you come away with so much knowledge of how to handle them, yes or no? So we are all doing it to an extent, but in yoga, Patanjali, and he says that this yoga is from the Vedas. It's Atha Yoga Anushasana. It's a continuation of a tradition, because all these teachings are also in Bhagavad Gita. I'm just mentioning the Patanjali because it's the most famous scripture. It's not the most famous scripture in the Vedas, Vedic pantheon. It's the most famous in America, in the West. Ever since in 1893 Vivekananda ji talked about it, so it became very famous. But it's good because it's famous. So now we have something we can talk about. But it makes so much sense. It's so scientific, does it not? But how are we walking around? We don't even have any control on our own mind. So it thinks what it wants to, it stays distracted, it's doing multiple things at the same time. I've heard people say things like, I've heard kids say, I can't do homework unless there's music going in the background, right? We actually want more and more and more and more things. But a yogi, if you're a yogi or a yogini, you should want less and less and less and less and less things. And you want to be more and more focused, because then you can turn the focus back to what really matters. So this probably will help your journey. Do you think it will help you guys, what I shared with you? Do you want to use your mind to your advantage? And you want to begin training it. And that is why you want to study the Yoga Sutras with me. You want to study, or with your teacher, whoever's your teacher. You want to find a source where you can study. I'm not just saying Yoga Sutras. You can study the Bhagavad Gita too. You can study the Vasishta Yoga too. You can study, there's so many teachings that can be given. But until we get this big picture, that it's up to me to use this instrument and not believe everything it says. We don't get this. And then we believe everything it says, and then we become arrogant because it says we are worthy of being arrogant, or it makes us depressed and needy. But this is just the mind. It's just the mind. Does that help? And when nothing helps, go to bed. During my own training, I've done my own training, when my mind would misbehave, I would say, I'm putting it to bed. At 8 p.m., I'd put it to bed. Next morning, it wakes up more normal. So I treat it like a child, like it needs routines. That's why we are into sadhana. It needs routines. It needs wake up time. It needs, okay, now we eat. Because when you don't follow these disciplines, it's your mind. Have you heard this? In India, we say this, I gave you an inch, you took a whole yard. Do you say something like that?
Yeah.
Huh? Okay. So it's like you give the mind a little leeway. It's like, yay, I'm free. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to break all the rules. I'll just, and then I will not follow you. And then bringing it back is such an issue. And then mostly it sits down and it's just unhappy. I want to get off the train. I want to get off the train. It's like there are people who are in meditative bliss in the train. Get on with, stop crying and move on. So it just sits there and it sobs, or it wants to play bingo, and it doesn't come in between there, where it's doing its own thing. Like, because there are people on the train, they're writing poetry, they're helping others. There's dharma going on the train too. They have decided that no more plastic tray food. They're making khichdi in the train for everybody. They're giving it away free. It's happening. The train is alive. You can do what you want on the train. The only option is not to jump off the train and commit suicide. There's some minds doing that. It's all the minds. So the minds, like that little... what's the tech word for, like, if we are somewhere else and is it a receptor then? Or a transmitter? Yeah, it's a transmitter. So the work is on the minds. And this knowledge, the schema of things that I give you. Veda is big into schematic explanations from a big perspective. Because then you won't dislike yourself if you're behaving a little differently. Does that help? So if some of you are here are in Vanaprastha, yeah, then you will feel like, oh yeah, that's who I am, Or if you are in Grahastha Ashrama, then you can say actively, then you can say, you know what, I need to hold this job and I need to save this money to buy a house, and this is very important, and satsang is a part of my life. Not the biggest part of it, but it's a part of my life because I know it's a journey and I'll need it to stay sane in every ashram. And Grahastha Ashrama was so important that my whole lineage is a Grahastha Sadhu lineage. We always remain engaged in the world. We don't have the option of taking complete sannyasa. So then what people did was, there's another schema for spiritual teachers, and that schema is called sannyasa or grahastha. And some people, so Vedic lineage is mostly grahastha. Most of our rishis are married, and or they have love interest and they are part of the world. But there is also sannyasa lineages where you take vows and you die to the world, so to say. And you only live in the spirit world while living on earth, so that's an option too. But I'm talking to regular folks. We are all in worldly life. I can't exactly tell you to shave your head, wear a couple of scarlet colored clothes or white colored clothes, and come with me, we'll go live in a hut, because I don't think I can deal with that. Yeah, mainly it's for me, I can curate the train experience I want. See, that's the secret. The secret is you don't have to attract what you want. You can be who you are. That's the secret. Yeah. We are talking about life as a journey, Jivan Yatra. We have talked in prior sessions about our life being presented as a schema by the Vedas, which says that there are 4 stages of life, and these stages of life are not just determined by the age, but by the state of your mind. Please remember that. So the Brahmacharya stage is when you become a student of life, and in a traditional sense, it means you become a spiritual student. Grahastha ashrama is a stage where you still remain a student, but you are taking that spiritual learning and applying it in your relationships. They could be personal, professional, you are an engaged person in society. And there are a lot of teachings around this. It doesn't mean you don't have any duties or responsibilities. You are an anchor for the whole society. Each anchored unit takes care of the whole society. So it's a beautiful stage of life. But we learn a lot about our ego at that time. And we learn a lot about our mind and how distressed it gets. So all the spiritual learnings, if you're lucky to receive any, are very helpful. Then we have a third stage known as Vanaprastha, in which we have seen the world, we've learned something, that there is more to me than the worldly me, and so we start contemplating more, choosing more, being more selective about our life experiences, you can say. And the fourth stage comes to some of us, not all of us, but it is known as sannyasa, where we are now almost become a second student of life. We go deep into study of scriptures or our tradition or a mystical path, and we try to find what is mystical and spiritual within us, because we know it exists. We don't need an evidence for it. We know there is a higher power. We know that a part of that power lives in me. We know it's shining everywhere. I want to touch it, hold it, know it intimately. And that is a stage of sannyasa. And according to the tradition of the Vedas, ideally we should start our life with the first learning ashrama, so that we have some knowledge and we are not blindly in relationships. But unfortunately, the Vedic system of education broke down. There were ancient schools known as gurukulams, and there were many, many lineages known as sampradaya that were dotting India from the tip of the Himalayas to the bottom of Kerala, South India. But these sampradayas, they became far and few. A lot of people from the spiritual became secular, and the function of these sampradayas was to hold on to knowledge. But it was not just spiritual knowledge, it was knowledge of life, how to lead the life, the art of living as a spiritual being embodied on earth. It's hard if you don't have anybody reminding you of these things. And so people would be bankers and artists and and money lenders and jewelry artisan, but they would also go to these sampradayas and get this kind of education that I'm giving, almost on a nightly basis or weekly basis. So people had a lot of knowledge. So, and they would send their children from young age to receive this knowledge. So then, therefore, society, we called it Satyuga. There was much more happiness and well-being and dharma, ethics, operating within society. But right now, the kind of schooling we all get is the kind of schooling which teaches us how to get ahead. Right? It's only professional education, and it is only education that somehow, how can we, survive, and survival of the fittest, the Darwinian theory, which doesn't even have a lot of biological proof, that became the ultimate. And all of us have been now, since then, competing with each other. So there is really no morality. And then when we threw away God in the Western world, when we said we don't want God, which happened at a big level, with God and religion, we even gave up on morality and ethics and respect of the parents, and the parents sacrificing for their children. And the new God is capitalism, and the new God is, money and wealth and property and fashion and Prada and, what is it called? All those other brands. We have those new gods, So apparently I met someone and their dog's name was Dolce, and I didn't know there's a brand called Dolce Gabbana. So I said, oh, where did you come up with this name? And they looked at me like I was a strange person from another planet. And then to help me out, because they really revered me, they gave me a gift of a Dolce Gabbana bag. And I looked at it and it was so ugly. Because can you imagine me with a pink Dolce Gabbana bag with flowers on it? And I'm like, what is this? It's like, since you asked, we have a Dolce Gabbana for you. I mean, this is a height, right, for their guru. Like, you know, they couldn't help like wondering if they had the right guru. But, you know, they thought now they're going to get me more right with a Dolce Gabbana bag, right? Of course, then, fortunately, a niece visited, and she was just the right age for that Gabbana bag, you know, 17, and the bag went on its own way. But the point is, I have encountered gods in the modern world, and I'm sorry, but I have my own version of God, okay, and I'm seeking it within me. But the point is, we have nothing right now, and that is why we need to, no matter what age and which ashram we are, we should actively come into brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, may I explain that word? People call brahmacharya celibacy. And you couldn't be further out. It's such a wrong explanation of brahmacharya. Of course, it can include celibacy. And I was talking about Patanjali and his Yoga Sutras, so brahmacharya means celibacy. But brahmacharya can mean anything. It can even mean ethically agreed sex. It can even mean ethically agreed, may I say it? Will everybody stone me? Ethically agreed orgy. Okay, said it. Sorry, okay, no problem. That's who I am, all right? This happens in the world, get real. Okay, as long as there are agreements, as long there is okayness, what is ethics, right? I can't say ethics is only marriage. I'm not going to say it because the Vedas don't say it, okay? I come from a culture that was truly progressive, liberal, and open. Just because people who interpret it today do it the way they want to in a regressive way, I'm not going to do it. Okay. We have given the world Kama Sutra. Okay. And my own rishis had more than one partners. So let's get real here, okay? Now, ethics is a matter of agreements. Dharma is a matter of agreements. So brahmacharya comes from the root word Brahman. And Brahman comes from the root sound Brihi, which means that which is the biggest. That which cannot be superseded. That which is infinite. It represents ultimate reality of consciousness. And Acharya means the path that takes us towards touching that Brahman within us, technically known as Atma, the boundless one. But if I say that I'm touching my Brahman, I'm not wrong, because there is not one Brahman and another Atma. This is non-duality. This is just different names. Sanskrit is, we can have 500 names for roses. It means the same thing. It's not 500 roses. It is all Brahman. It's pure consciousness. So brahmacharya path means the path which teaches you something big, and that you are that. You've just forgotten. It is so infinite that it cannot leave anything behind. We are part of that supreme consciousness. Are you understanding? So even the dead and the gone and the invisible are not gone. They are part of Brahman. And where is that Brahman? Here. So where is that person? Here. So then where is the universe? Where is the world? Is it outside? No, it's here. Do you see my point? It's getting a bit advanced. Everything is found here. That is why when little Krishna one day yawned, his mother saw the whole universe in his mouth. She was like shocked. She saw planets and cosmic bodies and everything. It's all within us. Okay, so the point of brahmacharya, let me come back to basics, is brahmacharya means become a spiritual student of ultimate reality. Whether you call it self or source or soul or God, it doesn't matter. The point is Don't just stay in a mundane education that makes you a professional or makes you own. There's nothing wrong with it. Artha kama are very important pursuits for pleasure and for wealth. But brahmacharya means seeking that. Now, you may be with a teacher who demands celibacy from you because you are going to be a deep yogi. You can do that if you are willing. Are you understanding? But it is not an imposition. Brahmacharya and Ayurveda also uses the word brahmacharya. Ayurveda and brahmacharya means being monogamous or being true to your sexual partner, not lying. So there are different interpretations of brahmacharya, and as an ashrama it means please rest in that knowledge. Let that knowledge be with you. That is brahmacharya. You can do it anytime. Nowadays we have to bring brahmacharya and grahastha together. Okay? Then vanaprastha will come. When it comes, it's good for you to recognize it. And then you want to create more time with your teacher or with the books that are teaching you or with some sattvic or enlightened or more evolving souls. You want to walk around in the train of your life and go sit with some people with whom the conversations will more enlighten you than dumb you down. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean that we are mocking the people. I mean, I was joking about the bingo and the card because believe me, I've played the bingo myself. So it's not a big deal. We went on a vacation recently and my nieces, they're 9-year-olds, my husband's 2 nieces, we love them to death. And they wanted us to play bingo and I had won one line. So there you go. You can play the bingo, but you can't not take out time for yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that is vanaprastha. And sannyasa ashrama only comes if you have a master or a teacher showing you the way and you are willing. But if it doesn't come in this lifetime, it will come in another lifetime. Or it will come with death. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I want to talk about how we want to have compassion for ourselves through this process. Because we may have, like I've already mentioned, we don't want to feel guilt forever. We want to milk this and say, man, that was not the alley I needed to go. That was not the people I wanted to sit in the train with and believe every word they said. This is what I'm believing in, etc., etc. So you want to have compassion for yourself, because if you want to have compassion for another, how can you miss out yourself? This is the bottom line. And if Brahman is living within you, there's something awfully right with you. Okay? There's something beautifully affirming within you right now. Our mind tends to say you're bad, you're not good, and says all that, but there is some beauty flowing through you anyway. And sometimes I feel like if Brahman is choosing me, then I'm going to choose me anyway. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. But sometimes be careful that don't let that compassion turn into lethargy. And you don't take up the sadhanas and you stay steeped in procrastination and laziness. So, of course, if you get exposed to my teachings in Bhagavad Gita, you will be a karma yogi. You'll always be working, because any work that comes in your life, including on your own self, is a gift back to Brahman. You know, this body has been given to you, take care of it, feed it well. Mind has been given to you, put it to good use. You want to do those sadhanas, but someone like me, I'm always being compassionate to myself. How does that feel? So, what does compassion feel like? On a daily basis, I have compassion for me, and I will gift myself a long walk. I will gift myself. I don't work as much because all the rest of the time I'm busy loving me. I oil my body. I cook. I and my partner cook 3 meals a day. Right now I eat 2 meals a day. So we cook, So we procure organic food. This is all ways to show compassion. It's not like I'm just all the time meeting every phone call, every email, everything. And it's like a compassion is not just a state of mind, it's a state of being. And then every night, if I'm not able to complete something that I'd set out to do, I'm like, it's okay. I literally hug myself because and then I connect with that beautiful power inside me and outside and say, help me again. And every morning when I face the sunrise, I say, please help me go through this Jivan Yatra in a more awake, more conscious manner. I don't say, please help me have a bestseller, make sure all my meetings go well, make sure I have 30,000 more in my bank. I don't talk like that. Please give me strength to deal with any karma that comes back from past life. Please give me strength to overcome my own mind and its craziness. Don't think that my Baba didn't have his mind to deal with, I didn't have my mind to deal with. But anyone who starts, first we blame others. You are the problem. You are the problem. But then when we start saying, yeah, there might be some strange people on the train, but the problem's my mind. There the victory begins. Right? Yeah. So that's one thing to remember, that there is anushasanam, there is a role for doing disciplining of what? Of your own mind. If you don't discipline your own mind, then I don't know, but say you're on a discipline, does it make you feel better? Does it? And when you break that discipline, how do you feel? You feel like you've been taken over by something else. What is that? That is your mind. So therefore, if you institute little disciplines, little gradual disciplines, it will help. And that is why I hope that you make an investment into exploring karma yoga, upasana yoga, and Gnan Yoga, along with Ashtanga Yoga. These are various ways of incrementally approaching discipline. For example, one discipline is, okay, I'm not going to be violent. Violence is an intention to hurt someone, where we become insensitive about another being's humanity or another being's right to be on that train with you, right? You were just insensitive. It's a different thing. You might raise your voice and tell your child, don't cross that door, because the child will be unsafe, or you tell your pet, no, stop scratching, because the dog or cat may keep scratching, it will hurt them. Or you might, in my case, I might even tell a student that's not okay, because who else will tell them that's not okay? But violence is where you want the destruction of that person. You don't consider that person anything. They're just under your feet now. They don't matter. Only you matter. Then at that case, say you made this discipline that I won't be violent. That itself is helping the mind. You don't always just have to meditate. It could be a value system that you pick up, and every time a violent thought comes up, you tell the mind, excuse me, we want to go through this train peacefully. Do you see my point? You can actually talk back to your mind. You can do that. Okay. So what was the other point you brought up, Omkara?
Such as compassion. And then how do you continue to stay disciplined when you fall off track? Get back without feeling
Compassionately starting again. You don't know how my life has been. I'll start again. The victorious one just has no problem starting again. The one who has failed wanted to just start once and make it. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't. I have seen my father, and he is by nature a lazy person. And I tell you, he works against his nature. And I have found that now, at his ripe old age of 87, he gets up and makes his bed. I mean, we have people who can help him, but he makes his bed. He's like, Beta, child, I try. I'm trying to work against my nature. Then he forgets things, so he writes in diaries. Then he loses the diary. It's not like he has Alzheimer's, it's just his nature. He has a lethargic brain. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is well awarded and distinguished in his field. But the point is, I know his struggles. So I say, how many diaries do we have? He said, Beta, I keep trying. That's the point. You keep trying. He didn't give up. And I really took courage from that, because I had my Baba who seemed like a super soul to me. And then fortunately I had a son who was struggling, who was an artist. You know, he's a beautiful artist as a writer. And so he's like the absent-minded professor, right? But he tries. I'm giving an example. And he tries, and he will try till the last day. And it's in his trying that makes a difference. So I try. And I've seen my students try. It's when we give up, everything goes away. Because that giving up is when you feel like, because when you give up, it's like you have decided that the train is your only reality. And it's going to take you where it wants to take you. And you have no say in it. But the reality is, and this is what I want to tell you, when you will go more and more in, there is no train. You're coming in and out at will. You can have the kind of train you want. It will soon slowly get filled with all kinds of examples. In every compartment you'll find people, even enemies, and they're only pointing you to you. And everybody who took anything from you couldn't take anything, because it was never meant to be yours anyway. This is all just karma playing off. Nobody can take anything from. Long ago, when I had first come into the country, I had very little money with me, and I trusted someone. And when I was traveling, that person wrote that money to themselves, because I had given them some checks to say, you know, you can pay on my account, you know, managing my office. And so my last penny was gone within the first year. I had no money. I called my father. I said, Dad, all my money gone, because I trusted. And he said, keep trusting. Nobody has taken anything from you. These were the words. I knew what he was saying. Don't change who you are, you know. Trust is a higher order of being. They've only taken what belonged to them from some other karmic time. You think I have ever missed that money? I have 1,000 times more that money, ethically earned, you know, given to me by the universe. Maybe not to me, but through my husband, through his job, through my students who are so well off, and they are all coming here, and I'm not paying any one of them to transmit this to you. This is all abundance for me. So therefore, continue to remain persistent in your path, because this is the path of truth. And if you are failing, it's just simply a matter of understanding that you are not your mind, and then picking up your mind. Because if you expect the mind to take you places, it won't. There's a part of you that has to separate from the mind and then tell the mind who's boss. Then the mind will behave itself. That is what I would say to you. This is a great time to write any questions if you have, while I just chant a little bit, because I like to chant every day, and there is one chant that's coming to me, and then one from Patanjali that I want to chant to you. And I'm just giving you some time to write also a question. But there's a beautiful chant to Shiva, and Shiva is not just a super being who sits in Mount Kailasha, but Shiva means auspiciousness. The ultimate reality is also known as Shiva. And Shiva is said that you are samsara, samsara saram, that you are this whole universe. This train is you. So even if I'm having some difficulties, it is while I'm being carried by you. You know, so I'm never really separate from you. And please show up in your heart along with your consort, the goddess, Bhavani. So it goes like this. Karpura Gaurava Karunavataram Samsarasaram Bhujagendraharam Sada Vasantam Hridayar Vande Bhavam Bhavami Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami. And then there is another chant in which we make a sankalpa or a soul commitment that whatever I do from my body, using my limbs, my speech, my mind, or even from my unconscious space, Prakriti Swabhava, I offer that to you, O great Supreme Reality. And this goes like this. Kayena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmana va prakriti svabhava karomi yat yat sakalam parasmai narayaneti samarpayami. I offer it all to Narayana. And again, Narayana is not just Vishnu, but Narayana is one Nara who lives in Narayana, who dwells in every living being. That reality, that supreme consciousness, that perfection, which is who I am until I got into this train. So therefore, while I am in this train, why don't I offer this satsang, this speech, back to that reality? Why don't I, anything I do using my hands, legs, speech, mind, may I stay connected? This is the spiritual journey. And when the Jivana Yatra becomes connected moment to moment with a higher consciousness, then things begin changing. And the right people, the guidance will start coming in. Now, you may have just yearned for relief, yearned for truth. And at that time, when you yearn, your yearning has power. When you yearn, you can yearn and ask your mother for a Barbie doll. She may give it or not, based on if she has the capacity to buy it for you or not. But when you yearn to be held, to be guided, you have to yearn for the right thing. Then in that train, the Jivan Yatra, you will suddenly find some new people that you had not seen. And those people will become part of your spiritual family. They will become part of your spiritual growth. Somebody may be a spiritual friend, somebody may be a spiritual teacher. You will suddenly, the fabric of your life, that train will not look like a train. And all its walls will become transparent. Things will become known more and more. You would not just be some being just traveling in a train from place to place, not knowing why. Because that's bondage. I don't know why I'm in the train. I don't know where it's taking me. I don't know where I'll show up. When you have knowledge, more and more, and you have bhakti. Bhakti means you have a trust in something more and benign, that power. That's why I love the concept of God in the Vedas, which doesn't make you choose one type of God. And you can see that same omnipotent presence in Allah, in Jesus, as you want. Because we have this concept of, nirguna and saguna. Nirgun is that which is omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading. And Sagun is based on, there is a reason probably why you are more connected with that greatness in one form, because that greatness chose you to be born in a certain family. Do you see my point? If somebody is an evolved being because they connect to Allah as that, do you understand my being? Or if somebody was born Jew, or somebody was born Sufi, somebody was born Hindu, somebody was born Sikh or Jain or Buddhist, but at the end of it, they are the lit faces in the train. Then it doesn't matter, right? Because they have connected to that ultimate truth. Do you see? So we have thrown away religions, but I am for religion. From a perspective, I'm not for religion like a blanket blind religion. I just feel that sometimes religion open to the masses something more. From religion, then we go into mystical spiritual journey, yeah? Where we meet each other, where all the gods are hanging out in an all-pervading formless way. Yes? Do you see what I mean? Yeah? Where Allah and Vishnu and Jesus are having chai. I'm ready for chai, by the way, right now. So I can imagine that. Okay? This is, for me, this is a more evolved way to move forward rather than say, my God versus your God, my Guru versus your Guru, my path versus your path. Look, whatever awakens you to the God inside you, I'm good to go. Okay? That's what is more important. We now have few minutes left. If you have any questions, I will answer them. Otherwise, I'll go drink my Ayurvedic chai. Our student Chandra will speak those questions for you. Okay. You want to come and stand here, somewhere closer to the... Okay.
Jai Ma Shunya Ji. My name is Chandra, and I've been studying with you for almost 6 years. I've had the pleasure to study with you, so thank you. We have a question today from Jenna. Her question begins this manner. This is about how I listen to the videos, live and pre-recorded. When it's a video of Shunyaji, I get sleepy and want to lie down and sleep, even when I'm not tired. Why is this? Thank you, Jenna.
Congratulations. It is said that when it's a video, so say you are listening to someone, you will know if, I'll give you the tip. So you don't really need to, okay, so how do I approach this? If, because of myself as your teacher in various roles, you are continuing to awaken, and if my speech puts you to sleep, but you wake up clearer, if not right away, 10 minutes later, and you are leading better and better direction in life, then chances are that your subtle body is listening to me. I have slept through many of Baba's satsangs. I'm not giving you all permission to sleep. But I see that in a live audience, you will not do that. So it depends. It depends. If you feel that I am, despite falling asleep, waking up more peaceful, more clear, you heard me anyway. And then just to finish your course or whatever you are studying, and you want to get some logistics down, because knowing is beyond words. So if I could open your knowing, that's good to go. But if you want now some words and you want to write it down, maybe you want to change the time you are listening to it. You should be in a more sunny spot. You should not be lying down and listening. You should be maybe even taking your class while chopping the vegetables. I know it's multitasking, but you can say, these vegetables, may you help me. A part of me is doing this thing. So I'm just staying alert, be intentional. But sometimes one of the ways I got the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was Baba, my guru, had two satsangs. One in the he had one satsang in the evening, every evening, and then in the morning he taught to his private students. And so in the night he would often teach satsang, but it would be really late for me in the sense I was a very active child, and I would be tired by 7:38, and most of the time I'd be carried to my bed from the satsang. You know, in India, children don't get put to bed. They kind of just stay with their family all the time. So the satsang would end around 9:30, 10, and I would be asleep in my mother's lap all the time. But I think that's where I really got all my Bhagavad Gita, year after year. Of course, later I studied with him word to word. But the way I got it into my blood and being was when my subtle body listened. And let me give you a tip. If you have kids who you want to give them some guidance and they're not listening to you, you go and talk to them when they're asleep. Because subtle body doesn't fall asleep. So I hope that helps you.
We have one person who's sharing a comment on this last question. Bob shares, whenever I listen to Shunya, I always feel more peace, even if I'm running 100 miles a minute. Thank you, Bob. We have one more question coming in. March is coming up, and I read in your book that this is the time to take a lot of pungent spices like ginger, pepper, etc. What if I feel heat in my stomach? Should I still take those spices?
Good question. Then instead of pungent, take bitter. Because the bitter spice is cooling, and like bitter vegetables and bitter things. And turmeric, when it's cooked in fats like ghee, etc., even though pungent is hot, turmeric is hot, it becomes 3 dosha balancing. And go for the bitter vegetables and things. Bitter is cooling and anti-kapha. And that's a great question you asked. It reminds me that I believe my team is about to launch my new program called Say Goodbye to Spring Allergies. I actually just got done recording a whole program. I'm so excited about it because anybody who's suffering from any kind of allergies year after year, if they can just listen to me for a few hours and eat those delicious recipes that I and my partner put together, Chef Sanjay, you're going to be allergy free. It's another truth. So, yeah, so you can go for the bitter. Okay.
Another question. I've noticed that when I listen to your live satsang, you answer the questions I have been contemplating on actively. Is there a chance that you are catching our vibrations?
I am. Actually, especially today. I was tuned into you guys at 6 in the morning. Can you keep it down? It's like, whoa. I am. I really am. So the thing is, I have developed an intuition and a trust that, and that I am, how to say it, I can connect to, or I believe I can. I can't give evidence, but I do hear you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
While we wait for a couple more questions to come in, I just would like to remind people where they can stay further connected to Shunya. You can find her on her Vedic Contemplation page on Facebook. You can also visit her website at acharyashunya.com. And of course, continue to connect channel once a month for this global satsang that comes live the first Sunday of every month. And you can find her upcoming events on her website, acharyashunya.com.
Wonderful. So are there any more questions?
Yes, looks like one more has come in. This is a recent occurrence, so it feels that it's naturally happening at any time of the day. Thank you for the confirmation for cooking because I did this before your advice and it helped.
What?
I'm sorry, this is referring to Jenna's question
Okay.
It's about sleeping and lying down during your satsang.
And what is she saying?
She said, this is a recent occurrence, so it feels that it is naturally happening at any time of the day. Thank you for the confirmation for cooking, because I did this before your advice and it helped.
Okay.
So
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. There's one more thing I want to talk about sleepiness. I just remembered and I should point that out. Jenna and everybody, if you notice that, not just with me, but if your ego may be a little protective and would rather have you sleep, that could happen too. That's why you have to test if you're waking up more, a little more clear, because sometimes the ego can resist knowledge, because the ego is like that part of your mind that believes it knows a thing or two when it really doesn't, you know. So it just wants to, it will like kind of shut down your senses, because it is known as Atendriya, it is the master of the senses, and it will make you drowsy, you know. So if that's the case, that's why we always pray in the Vedic tradition. We always pray to the higher powers and to our teacher and to our lineage, if you have one, and ask that may the task of education be completed. Like whatever I have set out to do, and then tell your mind, look, I'm going to make sure that I'm setting out an hour or 2 hours to study, and I need you to pay attention. Because this is also important. Like whenever I, start writing a book, or even before I gave the satsang, I chanted with my students. We want to make sure, because when you chant, when you connect with a higher power, you're really telling your mind that you mean business. And you are bringing a lot of intentionality into it. Otherwise, that's one thing. So it's both ways. So I'm not saying you have that issue, but I thought, oh, that could be one issue, so like I'll tell you, I cannot read a book by any author except by rishis. I fall asleep. So even if I try, like, somebody would say, oh, here is such a great book, like Vimla, you say, here is such a great book, 2 pages, I'm snoring. I'm not saying it's not a great book. And some people may snore on the books I write. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but when I'm reading the Shastra, I'm awake. So it's also there, that what's going on here? Let's take a bigger picture, And dear Jenna, there is no doubt I'd love for you to just come sit next to me and study, but apparently in the train, this is what's going on. Things happen. Make the best of even technology. I was a teacher who didn't want to get onto the technology bandwagon. I wanted people to come from far and wide and sit with me. But then I realized that maybe if this technology is also part of Brahman, then maybe this is what is required. And now that I teach online, more people are benefiting from the teaching that my soul wants to give them. The train is happier because of my going online and not less happy. So let's also, because you are my student, let's also accept once again what's not important is whether I'm close to my teacher's physical body or not. What's more important is, did I get the message? And are there routes for me to get this knowledge? And that is what is more important. All right? Hope all this big discussion helps you. I'm going to have ginger chai actually right now, maybe with some cinnamon added to it for spring. Have a happy spring. May you keep blossoming. Blessings to all of you. Shall we say Jai Ma loudly? Jai Ma. Take care.